Hello, thank you for watching this video, or beginning to watch this video. Pap and I used to sing a song way back in the hills. Well, I'm way back in the woods to shoot this video, and just noticed somebody stacked some rocks over there. That's kind of weird. I'll have to show that in a minute. Walking back in here, I felt like somebody had strewn petals for me to walk on, because all the way here there's all these flowers on the ground, and some still attached. What you might call rhododendron. Of course, we call it laurel. But anyway, those are all in bloom way back in here. I thought this was a nice little spot where you could kind of look up the creek. Maybe that won't make it too hard to hear what I'm saying over top of the babbling brook there, so to speak, in the background. Last night I released another one of Pap's songs. It's called Let Me Live for God, and it's a very old song. He and his brother Ray may have sung it once upon a time a little bit, but I'm not sure that they ever did. I know I never heard them sing that song ever. Never came upon any kind of old recording of them singing the song on reel-to-reel or anything like that. So to my knowledge, they never sang that song. Pap showed it to me when I was still a kid and just learning to play the guitar. I liked the song immediately. I thought it was really cool that the song had slow verses and a fast chorus, and it had two different timings within one song. I wasn't aware of that many songs that did that at that time. And if you've been listening to all these other releases, you might say, well, that I'm not the servant that I should be. That does that. But actually what that does, Pap had two different tunes for that song, which he sometimes did. He would make a melody and put the lyrics to it, and if he didn't like it or wasn't overwhelmingly enthused about it, he might later take the same song and set it to a separate melody. And any song that he did that for, that I'm putting on this project, rather than choosing between the two, I chose to do them both. So that's what's going on in that song, I'm Not the Servant That I Should Be. It's actually two different melodies which have two different tempos. This song is different in that from the time it was composed, it had two different rhythms, and it had slow verses and a fast chorus. And I liked the song. Especially when I was a kid, I liked anything that had minors in it. So I liked the fact that this has a minor in it. If you're playing the song in G major position, then it goes to an E minor. Pap and I recorded the song in 2016 on some of the older equipment that I had. So it was recorded at 48K rather than 96, which is what I record at now. That is the last recording of Pap. So his harmony, he took down that harmony about 2 weeks before he passed. We recorded the song, and then the following week I had spring break from school, and I went out and spent that with my nephew Ben. You might know him from the blog, Guitar Man, as we called him back then. He was living in Texas at the time, Springwood or something like that, just outside of Houston. So I went out and spent the better part of a week with him, came back, and had the blessing to be able to talk with Dad about that trip. My nephew and I had played a tennis tournament, which we actually won, so I was able to tell him about that evening. And then I went home, and then he passed away the following morning. And I was actually, as tired as I was from coming back from the trip, was actually supposed to play tennis that night. And one of my friends backed out. I can't remember why, but that was a very fortunate thing for me, because had he not, I would have gone on and played tennis, and I wouldn't have seen Pap for a couple of weeks, and then he would have passed. So I'm so thankful that it happened the way that it did, that I got to spend an hour or so with him that evening talking to him. Once he passed, we all, when I say we all, my immediate family, we were actually listening to this recording some because it was his last one, and we weren't really fully finished with it. And I remember playing it for my nephew Mark, so Ben, his younger brother, and I told him I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to try to improve it some. And he said, well, you might be able to, but it's, it's pretty good like it is. I don't know if you're going to be able to. And I don't know, I think he's probably heard it since I went back and worked on it. But I think it definitely improved. There's another situation, like I described in the last video, where I went back and did my part over because some of the pitch was not correct. And I went back and corrected it without listening to Pat's harmony, just with the headphones on, did my lead over, played it back, and Pat's harmony was just spot on, even more so than in the For My Change I Wait, which was the song I spoke about in the last video and the last song that I released of Pat's. And that just amazed me that he had sang his harmony correctly while listening to incorrect lead. It wasn't as bad, my lead wasn't as bad as the other one that I spoke about in the other video that I corrected, but it was definitely off in places. And just to say a quick word or two about that, and then I'll shut up about pitch. There's different ways or reasons to be off pitch, and a lot of times, as long as your pitch, if your pitch is wavering, as long as it's approaching the correct note, it's not that bad, and most people won't even notice it. When it's really sounds bad is if you're drifting away from the correct note. So in this, and probably in the other one too, I was bending the note in a little bit wavering away, so I was very glad that I was able to correct that. And I mentioned For My Change I Wait. So here's some little lyric pages and things that I found that Pap had written down. And one of these you've already seen, and I'll cut to it. I'm going to hold it up here, but I'll cut to it in the video. So in the last video, I showed For My Change I Wait, which is right up here. Well, Let Me Live for God is actually right down here, written in pencil. Hard to read, but it's there. So that tells me that possibly these two songs may have been written around the same time frame. Now Pap was sparing with paper, and it's funny because Wade Powell II called me last night and we were just talking about this, and he didn't even know I was going to be shooting this video or showing this piece of paper. But he made the comment that folks from an older generation, maybe because they or their families had been through really hard times like the Great Depression, they didn't waste a piece of paper, whether it was an envelope or any kind of piece of paper. They would write something on it. So in one of the videos that I did, I think it was the Jesus Shine on Me video, I showed where Pap had written some things down on the back of an envelope, or what I believe to be an envelope. Doesn't directly relate to this song. Before I finish that thought, actually, so I said, For My Change I Wait is up here, Let Me Live for God is down here. On the back, we have See the Salvation of the Lord, which will be on this project. And down here at the bottom, we have I'm Not the Servant That I Should Be. So that's really interesting to me, just boom, 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 4 songs on one piece of paper. One reason it's interesting to me is I assumed that See the Salvation of the Lord was probably written in the 80s when Pap and Ray were prone to do that song and when they recorded that song. But I know that this I'm Not the Servant I Should Be, I know that song is probably late 60s or early 70s. So this song, See the Salvation of the Lord, may be older than I thought. And it may be that Pap just sat on that song for a while, so to speak, before he and Ray started singing it. Back to the idea of writing things down on saved pieces of paper. So I'll cut to this as well, but here's another little piece of paper that was with that collection of papers that I found. And once again, strangely to me, it's a list, this time of 15 original songs. So as I said before, there's no way that this is a set list, because in any given show or set that Pap and Ray ever did, they might have done 2 originals, 3 tops. They would never do a full set like this of original songs. It's just too difficult, honestly. And as far as being off pitch, honestly, this is not an excuse. It's just a legitimate reason why some of my lead would be off pitch in those songs, because you're singing a song that you've never heard anyone else sing before. And so you're actually searching for those notes, finding what those notes should be, and sometimes you sing it one way and then you hear it back and you think, oh, no, that didn't work. That note I can't hit that note there. So I missed that, let me redo that. Speaking of Wade Powell, and the reason I'm laughing is because I start telling one story and I get into 3 different stories before I finish the one story. Wade Powell told me back at the time he told me this, I don't know how else to say this, but country music still had enough quality that the people making it had real talent, actual God-given talent, because there was not all this computerization and lack of substance that you have now. So Wade Powell II, he was telling me that someone who was familiar with how things worked in Nashville told him that if you were trying to make it as a singer in Nashville and you wanted to audition for a record producer, somebody who could give you a start as a singer, they would not allow you to, or at least they were not interested at all in you singing a well-known song. In other words, they were not interested in you coming in there and for your audition singing Mama Tried or another Haggard song, because you had already had the benefit of hearing a master, an expert vocalist sing that song. So that, in a sense, was already an unfair advantage. They were interested in hearing you sing a song you were not familiar with, maybe even a new song that they would teach you, and then see how could you come up with your own phrasing, what sort of expression would you use in which place, rather than just copying what, say, Marty Robbins, George Jones, or Merle Haggard did. So I thought that was interesting. Back to this set list. So when you unfold this set list, and I'll cut to this as well, it's actually an old flyer from the 90s, from the mid-90s, of a bluegrass festival that we played, or at least Pap and Ray played. It says the Wilson Brothers. I have no recollection of playing at Dillard's Music Park, promoted by Jimmy Clark in Rome, Georgia on April 22nd, 23rd of 1994. But probably I did and just have forgotten. Maybe I didn't go with them on that particular trip. The Powell family was also there, so that means Big Wade and Little Wade, Wade Powell II and III, they would have been there. Nicky Powell also, and various people. I'll cut to that. But I thought that proves the point that Wade Powell II was making about not wasting a piece of paper. And Wade actually, we were supposed to possibly meet up, but he kind of forgot to tell me, and so we didn't get to do that. And he used an old Appalachian expression. Of course, Tipper on her channel is always talking about Appalachian culture. I don't know if she's ever heard this expression. Wade said, "I wrote it down on a shuck and the cow ate it." So that's an old saying, and I guess once upon a time people would literally write something down on a corn husk or a corn shuck, and if you weren't careful where you laid that, some of the livestock might eat it. And it's kind of like the dog, I guess, ate my homework, but an Appalachian version that you could use in a situation where you were trying to keep track of something, but you didn't. So as far as I know, Pat never wrote any songs down on shucks, but who knows? I guess I'll stop talking about this song at this point. I hope you like it. One last thought or two about it that just kind of popped into my mind. One of the verses, I believe it's the second verse of this song, says, "Some may gain earth's wealth and fame as they sing of worldly things, but I'll sing of Christ my Lord and seek to gain his rich reward. And that's a thought I feel like Pap and Ray lived by. They only sang and recorded gospel music. Once upon a time, they made a demo for Hilltop. By no means were they said, hey, do this and we're going to sign you, or you've made it. But they did encourage them to go home, come back with some secular material, some original secular songs, come back and we are interested in hearing that. They never did that. Pap never wrote anything other than gospel songs. So he did live up to that part of the song. It makes me think of an old Louvin Brothers song, a beautiful song called If We Forget God. And it's funny to think in a way about how even back in the 50s, some people thought, oh, American society is really slipping. We're really starting to get kind of immoral. Imagine what they would think if they were here now. But in that song, If We Forget God, one of the verses, I think the first verse that Charlie sings says, so many are climbing fame's golden hill by singing of evil that gives this world a thrill. But I'll sing of Jesus, and though none may hear, God will bless me for doing his will. So two different minds, Ira Louvin, Jerry Wilson, pretty much having the same thought and expressing it in a pretty similar way, talking about other performers and other singers. Not to be judgmental, but just making that statement about this is the type of song that I'm going to sing, even though I could probably, it would be more profitable to me to sing a different type of song. So that's an idea that's in this song. I'm probably going to name this project, the overall project, Live to Never Die, which is another original song that Pap wrote, a much newer song that he wrote. And I've noticed that these songs, at least the way I'm grouping them together, they have different themes. There's several themes about light versus darkness. And if you buy the CD, you'll see that, you'll hear that in several songs. There's also a theme about life and the way to live life and the way to not lose life, ultimately, the greatest gift from God, the gift of life, the gift of existence, and having your soul and not losing your soul. So this song goes right in there with that. It's one of the few songs on the project that Pap will actually be on that we sang together. I mentioned it was the last recording that he ever made. The second to last recording that he ever made was on a song that he wrote called Heaven's Brightest Glory, which is about creation and outer space and the way the majesty of those things, like the sun, the stars, the way they demonstrate and provide clear evidence of God the Creator. I lied. I said I had two more thoughts. Another one just popped into my head. So another song, this is another theme that's in this project, the theme of creation. There's that song, Heaven's Brightest Glory. There's another song that he wrote in the early 90s called The Heavens Declare the Glory of God. Now, on this list of original songs, which one is it? Number 14 says, Invisible God. Now that could be a song I've never heard, but I think it's probably The Heavens Declare the Glory of God. And it does use that phrase, invisible God, or that term, in the song. So sometimes maybe Pap hadn't decided what he was going to call a song, or he was just writing things down quickly and he would just grab a phrase from that song and write it down. Now the reason that's particularly interesting to me, because I see that all the time. I sometimes do that myself. Corey and Katie, the Presley girls, we do that. Like if we're going to play a song, we might not call it by a title. We might just call it by a really prominent line in the song, and everybody will know what we're talking about. Now, in that other list of original songs that I found, there was one called Sweet Memories of Mother, and I commented that I don't know that song. I've never heard that song. I have no clue about that song. If you watched the last video, you know that I found some lyrics for two of the missing or unknown songs. That was not one of them, Sweet Memories of Mother. But I have developed a theory, a possible theory about this song. It's on here as number 13, Sweet Memories of Mother. That could be a song that I've never heard of, or, and this is a bit of a stretch, it could be the song I'll Be Home, which is a great song, one of his best songs that he wrote, and Corey and I actually sang it recently. She already has the video. I'm not sure when and if she's going to use it. But the beginning of that song, it doesn't say anything, it doesn't use the term Sweet Memories of Mother, but it does start out and it says, "Dearest mother passed away, and my daddy's old and gray. Many loved ones from this life now are gone. Though I'm saddened within, I believe we'll meet again, when all will be well and I'll be home." That is the first verse. Even though it never says Sweet Memories of Mother, because I've now seen that phrase written down twice, I am starting to wonder if that's actually referencing the song I'll Be Home. One reason I think that's possible is Pap was very, very close to his mother. When his mother passed, it was so hard on him. Even though I was a little boy, I could tell that was just so brutal to him. And she did die unexpected and fairly young. I want to say she might have been about 60, somewhere in there. And knowing how close Pap was and how much he loved his mother, if he'd had a whole separate song about just his mother and his sweet memories of her, I have a hard time believing that at some point he wouldn't have sung that song for me or for other people, unless it was somehow just so personal for him that he only sang that song when he was alone. Maybe because it brought tears. I won't know for certain, but that is a theory that I now have, is that actually could be just the song I'll Be Home, which is a great song. And I'm almost wishing, after Corey and I have learned to sing it, I'm almost wishing that I had put it on this project. I don't have any more room unless I take one of these off of it. And I haven't fully decided. I'll have to decide soon. As I said in the last video, the only song remaining to actually record is Beyond This Veil of Tears. I am working that out in my mind, how I want to do that. I know of a harmonica player that I may ask to play on that song. I have experimented. I play the harmonica a little bit, and I've experimented with playing it. The way I want to play it will require bending notes, and that's something I'm not good at. I also have a different piano player that I may approach about playing it. And Mark Richland, who has played some of the piano on this project, he played on I'm Not the Servant I Should Be, What Kind of Friend Has He in You, and maybe one or two others. Also Josh Griggs, who you've seen in some of my videos, he played on one of Pap's songs on this project. They're both great. I am thinking about asking this different piano player just to have more variety. That's one reason I've tried to play different instruments and use different tunings so that it doesn't start to sound a little bit the same from song to song. I'm not going to say who the piano player is just yet, or the harmonica player, because they may turn me down. The piano player is actually kind of well known, at least on the internet, and he's very good. So we'll see. So far I've had great luck. People like the idea of the project, of honoring my father, who had all these great songs, and getting them out there. A lot of people have charged me absolutely nothing, even though I've sometimes given them something anyway. And those who I have paid, I have actually paid very little. They've asked practically nothing, and I've usually given them a little bit more than that. And a lot of them are professional musicians. It's how they make their living. So I've been really blessed in that regard. But we'll see. One thing different about this piano player, I think I might be able to talk him into using a real piano, like a grand piano, rather than a digital piano or a keyboard. Josh plays a digital piano. Mark Richland played a keyboard. I tried to talk Mark into using a real piano, but it's a lot more hassle. You have to set up microphones. It's more difficult if you need to correct something. It's more difficult to get a good quality recording, because with a keyboard or a digital piano, you're just going straight in with a line. But we'll see. We'll see if how this works out beyond the spell of tears. I have to have a picture. So the picture this time for this song, rather than taking something out in nature like I've typically done, I actually just took a picture of the notebook paper there, and I couldn't get all the lyrics in the little frame that CD Baby makes you use, but I got enough of them in there that people that look closely should be able to see, oh, that's the handwritten lyrics to this song. Thank you for watching this, and I guess without further ado, here's this song, Let Me Live for God. If you want to download it, you can get it from Spotify, you can get it from iTunes, you can get it from CD Baby, any place like that you can download music. Thank you.
Let me live for God. I will live for God. Let me sing His praise. I will sing His praise. Let me die for Him. Let me die for Him. To live again an endless day. Some may gain earth's wealth and fame as they sing of worldly things, but I'll sing of Christ my Lord and seek to gain His rich reward. Let me live for God. I will live for God. Let me sing His praise. I will sing His praise. Let me die for Him. Let me die for Him. To live again an endless day. When I'm tempted to give up, when my way is long and rough, then I go to God in prayer. He gives me strength. He really cares. Let me live for God. I will live for God. Let me sing His praise. I will sing His praise. Let me die for Him. Let me die for Him. To live again an endless day. Let me live for God. I will live for God. Let me sing His praise. I will sing His praise. Let me die for Him. Let me die for Him. To live again an endless day.
could be a tree limb, but I believe that's actually a huge grapevine that has broken off. Like there's been a turkey, possibly, come through here. I'm not an expert on feathers. I'll have to show that to Matt or somebody, get him to tell me what kind of feather that is. I swear, the little sucker feels warm, like it's just just been shed. May have flown out of here, getting away from me. Here's a pretty little bed of ferns over here. This is the way they do in predator movies, horror movies, coming through the ferns. Deer track. Deer track. Coyote track.